Next up, we have a put your hands together for Sam Terry, EMP for Ilford South, and Shadow Minister for Transport.
Precise action from the government. That means introducing Magnitsky sanctions on some of the war criminals. That not only 100,000 people outside of this hall here in Westminster campaigned and marched the streets on back in 2009, people that are now in government, these very people here in London protested against. We want to also ensure, we have an absolute guarantee from the Labour Party, and this will be our position, that human rights, when we're doing trade deals with the Sri Lankan government, will not be compromised. Because it's about using the power that we have here in the UK, the freedoms that we have, the democracy we have, to ensure that the Tamil people actually reach their dream of self-determination and a future in which peace and harmony can actually break out. And the Tamil people in the Tamil homelands can also experience their life in a demilitarised zone. And they are things that I'm proud to put on the record and say clearly, publicly from this stage, and I believe actually that anyone from the Labour Party will be saying very much the same thing. But most importantly, I would like to say thank you. Thank you to the Tamil community in North who stepped up during the pandemic. The work that they've done, alongside people from other communities and other faiths, to actually reach the most difficult and stricken people in our community, taking part in mutual aid events, working together to raise money. I remember going with a number of people in the audience here to our local King George Hospital to take food parcels and energy bars to some of the doctors who've been working shift after shift after shift, to the nurses and auxiliary staff as well. Because the Tamil community is not a community that will just say, we want this, we want to sort our own future out. We are actually part of Ilford and part of Britain. We will do our very best to help our communities right here prosper and grow. They decided they wouldn't walk by on the other side of the road. They came with us and done that work supporting our local medical facilities at King George. And I think for me, that really says so much about the values and the attitude of the Tamil community. So it gives me a huge pleasure to be here tonight, to see people in person, to celebrate this festival tonight, and to make sure that we've had so many politicians here speaking tonight, that we will continue to keep up the pressure for those rights to be recognised, for those UN sanctions to actually be imposed, for the Sri Lankan government not to be let off the hook. That's the most important thing. You'll see me and other Labour MPs pushing that here in the Chamber, holding the government to account on your behalf, so that one day there will be a demilitarised, self-determined Tamil homeland that all of you, British Tamils, can freely travel to, which is part and parcel of our wider Commonwealth, burgeoning links between our two countries for trade and tourism. So as so many of the MPs here tonight have had to dash off, I also got to do the same, so I want to go and speak at another Thai Pongal this evening. But thank you so much for having me. Nandri, and enjoy the rest of your
Next up, we have our next performance. Next up, we have Pongal dance. The Punsida School of Dance UK is extremely proud to present the traditional Tamil harvest folk dance depicting the various activities involved in farming, including the sowing of the seeds, creating a drain using water, wheels to perform irrigation, harvesting, threshing, hauling, and winnowing, whatever that is, but we'll see.
Yes, and the dancers that will be performing today are Krishna Jain, A.R. Suresh, Parvati Mahipillai, Riya Sahar Devan, Ritika Umasudan, Sanvi Dharan, Sharika Sivayogan, and Shivani Shivakumaran. And they are all led by the teacher, Mrs. J.M.A. Jayanami.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker is a friend of Tamils, the best treating MP for Ilford now, who has been very helpful, used to be the APPG Vice Chair, and continuously for the past decade working with us to help with the community issues. I kindly ask Bess to come and say a few words.
Thank you, Zen, and Vanakkam. It's great to be here with you all to celebrate Thai Pongal, and I regret I'll have to leave very shortly to go and speak to another event as well, but it's great for us to all be able to be together to celebrate this really important festival. As Zen said, since I was first elected as the MP for Ilford North in 2015, campaigning for human rights, justice and accountability for the Tamil people in Sri Lanka has been a really important priority for me. In fact, thinking back 2 years ago, just before the first lockdown was introduced, as the rest of the country was beginning to shut down, I went through a very empty Stansted airport to board a plane to Geneva to lobby UN Human Rights Council members at what was then a very empty Geneva too. But it was important for me to get on that plane and to lobby because our work collectively together here in the UK and with Tamil communities right across the world has made a really big impact in keeping on the agenda of the international community our ongoing campaign for justice and accountability, which will ultimately is the only way that we will get true reconciliation and a fairer, prosperous outcome for all of the peoples of Sri Lanka. And that work is very important to me and it remains a really big priority. The return of the Rajapaksas and the direction of the government we see in Sri Lanka bodes really ill for the future of the island and all of the communities who live within it. And it's really important that our government keeps up the pressure on the government of Sri Lanka, working with international partners across the international community to make sure that trade doesn't trump human rights. And I'm absolutely delighted to see here this evening, alongside a range of people from across political parties, from the government, from the opposition, Labour's Foreign Secretary, Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, which I think shows just how important the Labour Party takes this issue. It shows how important Keir Starmer, as the leader of the Labour Party, takes this issue. And David, it's great to see you're among friends, and we really appreciate the support and the commitment you've shown as the Shadow Foreign Secretary. So, enjoy the rest of the evening. I'm so glad I caught that last performance in particular. I just think one of the wonderful things about the Tamil community here in the UK, and I see this in my home community of Ilford, that the Tamil community makes such a great contribution to our country, whether through business, through culture, or through politics. We are so lucky to have the Tamil community here, but it is my dearest wish that people who've made the UK their home can also visit safely the home from which they came, from which you were forced to leave. That's my dearest wish, and I hope that we continue to work together to deliver that justice, that accountability, and a bright future for all the peoples of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Again, before I introduce our next speaker, I thought of reminding some of the Labour Party's manifesto commitment before. The reason being now we got a new foreign or international team. Number one, we recognize the genocide committed against Tamils. We will create an international judicial mechanism to address crimes against genocide. We will seek a political solution that recognizes the right of self-determination of Tamils. We will urge to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act and the release of all political prisoners. Lastly, the fifth one was, we will urge the Sri Lankan government to demilitarize the Tamil homeland in the north and east of the island to release all occupied territories. Very recently, after the Magnitsky sanction scheme came into the legislation, we campaigned with the Labour International team to implement the sanction on head of the Sri Lankan army and political leaders complicit in the genocide of Tamils. One thing I noticed, even though this is a cross-party issue, I saw the government side speaking, thanking the Tamil community. But I must say we are more concerned about those mothers, brothers, sisters fasting and carrying the British flag, American flag, EU flag for 1800 days. Every day they are protesting, believing the Western world will do something. But the British government couldn't do the least thing, that is the 7 plus silver, the head of the army was banned by the Americans. There is a 50-page report by the INGO here. They haven't even replied. So sadly, I think it's down to David Lammy now to put pressure and get this done. So I said it here, it's a cross-party issue, but we don't want thank you, we want some action. So I'm pleased to introduce the newly appointed Shadow Foreign Secretary, the Right Honourable David Lammy, MP for Patna.
So much. And you know, this festival is about harvest and overflowing. It reminds me, and this is common among so many of Britain's minority ethnic communities, so many of us arrive with hope in our hearts from very rural places, hoping for a bounty, hoping for blessings on our children and our family and the generations to come. My father came here in 1956, so I was thinking of the village that he came from when I saw that wonderful dance and presentation. And I'm thinking of my Tamil brothers and sisters, and I'm thinking of how well you have done as a community. I'm thinking of those teachers, and those pharmacists, and those doctors, and those nurses, and those researchers that contributed to giving us the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I've got to say, as a fellow ethnic minority in this country, I pay tribute to the Tamil. This is quite rightly a cross-party gathering, but can I just pay tribute to Sen for all his work, urging and pushing and reminding us. And I can also just say a wonderful tribute to my good friend, Siobhan McDonough, who has done an outstanding job, certainly, reminding us all about this course over many, many years. I think it was back in about 2009 that I walked outside of Parliament and I too sat down with you in solidarity. And I have not forgotten that act, which is now so many years ago. But as I step into this role and remind myself of the journey travelled, let me just say 2 things. The first thing is, in the Labour Party, we believe in internationalism, we believe in multilateralism, and we believe in the rule of law and human rights. That means that you must be held accountable when atrocities are committed on innocent, decent people, and we must hold the Sri Lankans to that accountability. And it means also, and I'm thinking of the importance of sanctions. I remember marching years ago for sanctions against the apartheid regime in South Africa. And that is why we pushed to see Magnitsky brought in to ensure that those who committed those atrocities are subject to the same international rules and the same pressure to be held accountable. So that I look forward to the work that I can do in solidarity with you in this role, holding those to account, pressing your case in international forums, standing up for human rights and solidarity with a people long receiving an injustice for which people must pay the price for those who have lost their lives. I stand shoulder to shoulder. Thank you so much.
Next up we have Gillian Keegan, Ministry of Health and Social Care.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you very much for inviting me. A more wonderful day to celebrate Pongal. But it's not just a day, is it? It's a month, a whole month of celebrating Tamil heritage and culture, and it's fantastic. And well done to the London Assembly for organising that. As Nina said, I'm the Minister of State in the Health Department, so I'm one of the health ministers. As you can imagine, it's been kind of quite a busy time. But it's been a busy time as well for the Tamil community, because many people in the Tamil community are at the centre of our response to the pandemic. They've been at the centre, on the front line, working day in, day out. I think 1 in 12 doctors in the NHS is from the Tamil community. So I wanted to come along here. And on behalf of the department and everybody, to say a massive thank you to all of the NHS staff from your community. As David said, you have done an amazing job in terms of providing some really key, important roles, and not least Mahasi, who is the scientist, who was one of the lead scientists in the development of the vaccine as well. You should be really proud of your community. We're very proud to work alongside you. We're very proud of all the work that you do to help us. Our NHS simply could not function without the support of your community. I believe I am the last Member of Parliament that's going to be speaking to you today before you can get back onto the cultural stuff, so the dance and the singing, which I'm sure you all want to do. But I just wanted to come here to say a massive thank you. We love to come along, celebrate and rejoice your community and all of the cultural heritage you've given to us here as well. So thank you for everything you do, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. We're still in the pandemic.
Next up we have Pullammal, flute. The title of the next piece is Gandharva Gana Gamika, flute by Dr. Gnani Picheppa, accompanied by Kandeya Sidambaranathan on tabla. Dr. Gnani Picheppa has been a professional flutist for over 30 years, teaching and performing in venues all over the world. Kandeya Sidambaranathan is highly accomplished flutist with decades of experience performing and teaching in the UK and Europe. He is a skilled performer with Mridangam, tabla and garam. Put your hands together for Mr.